Over the last couple of years, I have been on a slow but steady journey of becoming somebody who is less wasteful. I'm now, by no means am I going to be somebody who by the end of the month can fit all of my trash in one mason jar. Don't get me wrong. That is amazing for people that can do that. That is not going to be me. I got 2 kids under the age of 6. I don't know how y'all do that. But listen, I have been making slow, intentional choices to reduce and use less waste. But there have been certain things that I'm just like, is there a zero waste option for this? Is there an option out there that maybe could solve a problem, especially with a lot of bathroom products? Let's be honest, Q-tips, tissues, there are not very many options on the market until today.
Welcome to the Business with Purpose podcast. Welcome to the Business with Purpose podcast. Here's our host, Molly Stillman, our mom.
Welcome to the Business with Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Molly Stillman of stillbeingmolly.com, and this show is all about bringing you the stories behind the brands, companies, and small businesses that are changing the world. Each week, I interview an entrepreneur, CEO, nonprofit director, community leader, or just an incredible person who's trying to make a positive impact, not only through their personal life, but also with their career. My goal is to show you that no matter what you do for a living, you can make an impact wherever you are. My guest this week is Isabel Aagaard, founder of LastObject. LastObject is a Danish design trio that consists of great minds. These incredible people have chosen to tackle some of the least sexy objects out there, like first, cotton swabs, and now disposable tissues. Not for the fame, nor for the love of these objects, but because they are addressing the problem of single-use items and looking past the highly visible culprits, currently plastic bottles and straws. Swab is the reusable alternative to cotton swabs, which replaces the need for the 1.5 billion single-use Q-tips produced daily, only to be thrown out after one use. And Last Tissue saves 2 liters of water per tissue and has become wildly popular on Kickstarter. Prior to founding LastObject, Isabel designed the first reusable chemotherapy bag to help reduce waste in the medical industry, and it is now being used all over Denmark. I was absolutely fascinated by this conversation with Isabel. I love what she is doing, and I know you are going to learn so much. So without further ado, on to my conversation with Isabel. Isabel, thank you so much for being on the show with me today.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
This is so exciting. You are all the way in Copenhagen, Denmark, which I have never been to Denmark, but it is, I have heard, one of the most beautiful places on the planet. So you were born and raised in Denmark. We'll get to all of that in your intro, but I have to ask right here at the beginning, because this is very relevant for people right now, is, everything that's going on with the coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it. In the South, people just call it with everything that's going on. That's what we call it. It's just with everything that's going on. How are things there for you in Denmark right now?
Well, our government took it very seriously when it first out here. We had a lockdown situation. Everything was closed, schools, stores. So it's been everybody's been quite isolated. I think everybody's learned how to kind of work from home and make that a thing. So I think it's been very interesting. But now I think we're like a month and a half in. We're slowly starting to open up, and it's mostly actually the medical, or like our hospitals just has to have room for people that are sick. So that's what we're trying to balance in a way with the lockdown. So so that's been the focus, but it looks like the hospitals have a really good take on it. So now slowly we'll see what's going to happen.
Yeah. That's really good. Well, Isabel, I want you to do what all my guests do, and that's give us the Isabel 101. So tell me who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you are today.
Well, my name is Isabel, and I'm from Copenhagen, Denmark, born and raised here. I have an IT background, actually, and then I did a master's in collaborative design, which I really loved, and this is really what actually took me to where I am today. I have a huge passion for the environment, and I have a huge passion for doing startups. So I've done a lot of different weird stuff throughout the years, but in some way they all are sustainable or in that direction. And they also build on this thought of designing collaboratively with people. So as a co-designer, which is my title, I've always explored how we can create and make things that are unique and usable and make them in collaboration with the people that will be using them.
Now, you said that you have a master's in collaborative design. That is the first time I've ever heard of that as a field of study. And so I'm curious, what exactly does that entail?
Well, it's kind of becoming a designer and an what do you call it? An anthropologist?
Anthropologist, yeah.
So an anthropologist and a designer in one is kind of what a collaborative designer is. It's called co-design, and it's actually a field that was quite new when I started, and it's now grown, and you can see it in different countries, but it is very, very focused on the design process as a collaborative thing. So it's more or less, for example, I've done some things for hospitals. So instead of looking at patients and creating a solution or a design solution to solve problems for them, I'm actually creating tools so that they can design their own solution. So it's very much like taking people and interactions and their abilities into my work instead of being a designer, which is in an ivory tower and, knowing what's best or creating what I think this patient or this person would want to use.
Yeah. So it's almost like kind of seeing, kind of from what I'm gathering from what you said, is that it's almost seeing what the needs are. What is it that the person or company or organization or business has, and then how you can sort of fill in the gaps or design around what their specific needs are.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's looking at problems a different way in a sense, or solving the problems at least in a different way, and where you take into account that the expert are the people that are using or should be using this solution and not the actual designer or engineer.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, talk about LastObject. When I first was introduced to LastObject and your work there, I was so intrigued and honestly so impressed because you guys are, you're tackling some of the least kind of what you call like least sexy objects out there. But it's funny because that is something that like, for example, I mean, I love for you to talk about this, but like cotton swabs, Q-tips. I think about that all the time, like in my kind of own personal journey to try to reduce waste or find, you know, multiple uses for an item. Every time I use a Q-tip, I'm like, oh, I wish there was a reusable version of this. I hate how many Q-tips I have to throw away. But Q-tips are like one of those bathroom tools that I'm like, no, I am not, I'm not ready to like sacrifice not having Q-tips. I realize this is a very silly thing, but when I saw that that's something that you guys tackled, I was like, yes. So, so for those that aren't familiar with LastObject, talk about LastObject, what it is you do, and kind of how it all got started.
Yes. Well, LastObject is, for us, our mission is to create an alternative to single-use items. And you're right, we have started creating a lot of products that are in the kind of ew industry, which has been successful and awesome. We've started with our last swab and now launched last tissue. So we've really, we're dealing with earwax and buggers at this point. I'm really, really crazy about like how we're gonna do the whole. Like toilet paper is kind of our huge, like it's on top of the of our staircase because they want it to like feature that at some point. We don't have the solution yet, but I'm sure that we'll figure that out.
That is so cool. So how did you kind of come to the realization that this was a particular issue that you wanted to tackle and that you were going to do that through kind of design and business together? I mean, I know that you mentioned that you'd always kind of had a passion for the environment and startups, but at what point were you just like, okay, this is really something that I want to tackle and I'm going to do it through business?
We're three designers that actually one of them is my brother, and we've always worked very close and been a close. We're very like entrepreneurial family, so it's easy for us to work together. And we had an open workspace where we did each different companies. He was working with another designer called Cole. And at lunch, actually, we would just like talk about what we really wanted to do. I was working at that point in the medical industry and for different hospitals and doing designs for them. And it was actually just like a kind of over the counter talk, and we're all very interested in going into sustainability and going into sustainable solutions. And they like Cole and Nicholas, my brother, they're into numbers, and they're so great at like trying to figure out, well, if we should do an impact, then we should really make it a huge impact. I don't want to do something that, is going to change something a little bit. We want to do something that really will be at a huge scale.
Mm-hmm.
So we started looking into what is really affecting our planet. And this is where single-use items in general came up, and we read different articles and reports and statistics on the matter. And Q-tips was among like the 10 most biggest contributors to our world in a not a good way. So we looked into Q-tips in general and wanted to really see how could we design something else? Could we do something where the Q-tip would not be thrown away, but where it would be reused? So this is where like the whole journey began, but we started listing up a lot of different products that we wanted to tackle. But I think our main focus has just always been we want to tackle issues that are not tackled already. So for example, a straw. I've seen so many different designs. There are so many good designs out there that are tackling that issue. We're not going to go into it then. But we want to go into the designs that are not really solved or are not good. So this is like our main focus. And then on top of that, we want to look at items that are single use, that are something you frequently use, which therefore will make a huge impact.
That's so cool. And I love that you were like, we're basically dealing in earwax and boogers. Yeah. Hey, you know what? I have 2 kids under the age of 6, and that's basically what I'm dealing with right now is earwax and boogers. So we are not all that different. So when for example, like because I'm really one of those people who's really interested in sort of the nitty gritty, the logistics of things. I'm fascinated by that kind of stuff. When you said, okay, we're going to start off with something like a cotton swab with, a Q-tip, where did you even begin in when you started thinking about the design process, materials, testing prototypes, all that kind of stuff? I'm just fascinated by that whole process.
We start our design process with looking, of course, at the object that we're kind of replacing, because we want it to really look alike. We want you to look at this and be, oh, that's a Q-tip. We don't want you to say like, oh, I need a manual. Like, should I twist it, right, left? Yeah. We want it to tell you what it is doing by just design. And that's why we want to refer to how it looked or how the single-use item looked. So we're trying to put those two, and you can also see it with our tissue box. It's very design-wise sleek, but it will still look like a tissue box or a tissue pack. So this is something that we have in mind throughout the design process. What we do is that we keep prototyping. And I've talked to so many different people about this, and I don't think that it's kind of like when famous people, they're doing these amazing songs and you're like, oh, how did you write this amazing song? And they're like, well, it's it's 1 out of 200. And that's kind of the same with design. It's 1 out of 200. We keep prototyping. We use different materials. We use different forms. We scale it up, scale it down. And in our little team, the guys are so good at 3D programs. So that's why we do a lot of testing by 3D print, but also just like going down to the woodshed and trying to nail it out, form it. You can use any material that you want to really just get a sense of it, just to hold it, just to see how it weighs, see how it will look to the others, and take out all your paint. Like we just did colors with like a palette of paint and a big sheet where we just like, oh, what about this pink? No, we should do it a little bit less pink, a little more pink. Like you test everything out and just like see what you have around you. That's really how we work and how we prototype.
That's so cool. Now, when did you officially launch and kind of put this out into the market?
Last year, 2019, in April, actually. Yeah, so a year ago.
Yeah, a little over a year ago. That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, what were the kind of initial reactions from the marketplace when you put this out there? Were people like, yes, this is something we want? Did you kind of have to educate people on why this is something they should want? How did that go?
I think in the beginning, we were very 50-50 in the people that interacted with our social media post with ew and oh my God, this is awesome. So we kind of had both. And this was really cool because it created a conversation.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you want when you're designing something. You want people to question it. You want them to ask like, well, why do you use that material? And like, how do you clean it? But how, like, oh, I don't understand. This is gross. So I think that like the discussion and that people were disagreeing, that was an amazing thing for us. And that continued and it keeps continuing. So there is, of course, some people that will still to this day think that that's really gross. And there are some that use it every day and swear by it by now. So it was very different.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how exactly, like, let's just stick with the cotton swabs for a minute. How does it work? How is it reusable? How do you clean it? Like, I'm just genuinely curious.
Yeah, of course. Well, our last swab is made of a very durable plastic in the middle. So it has like a core of PP plastic. And the ends are made of something that we call TPE, which is a thermoplastic, but it kind of has the same feel as silicone. So that's kind of, yeah, the quality of it in general, but it's a better material that can stick to the core, which is really, really important because we don't want the tips to fall off in any way.
Yeah.
So we really designed it well so that it's melted together in a sense. And you get it in a carry case, which makes it very hygienic to carry around with you, but also just to store it when you have it in your bathroom because it's not touching any surface. It's kind of lifted up. And this is this is kind of like the design. We have two versions, so one for makeup and one for cleaning your ears. The one for cleaning your ears has more like a textured surface, so it can like kind of get something out, where the makeup version has like a pointy and a more like soft end, which is more for detail or removing excess makeup.
Yeah. And do you just wash them with soap and water?
Yes, you wash them with soap and water under your sink.
That's awesome. Now, last tissue. Now, I'm assuming that it is different than a handkerchief. Or is it similar?
Well, it is actually, I would call it like the modern handkerchief because it is like the old kind of handkerchief, but it is 6 handkerchiefs in a box, which is hygienic.
Yeah.
So it is a tissue pack and a handkerchief that kind of had a baby.
A tissue pack and a handkerchief that had a baby. Because I remember, it's so funny because I think about my dad is almost 76. And when I was growing up, I mean, he still uses one, but he used a handkerchief. And I always used to remember, like, he would blow his nose and then just like put it back in his back pocket. I was like, Dad, ew. And he's like, this is what we do. Like, he said that this is just what all men of that generation do is they blow their nose into some handkerchief and then just plop it back in their back pocket. And I just remember being so grossed out by it. And then now, like, as an adult, I'm like, wow, Dad was really earth conscious. And I don't even think he was like realizing it. Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
I know. So how did that come about? And why was that kind of second issue that you wanted to tackle after cotton swabs?
Well, after cotton swabs, we wanted to go into something that in the same way was something that really made a huge difference because you would use it so much. And what our big success environmentally with the swab was that It's an item that's quite small, but it's just something that people use a lot of. And the numbers are crazy. The tissue numbers are even more crazy. So that was why we wanted to tackle that problem. We did a lot of research around it, and we tried to figure out how we could design our way introducing the handkerchief again, because it is just a really good design. But I feel the same way as you do. Like, I don't want to put my hanky down into, my pocket. It's just like, it's not going to happen. Not even, with a lot of kids around. So we wanted to do something that was more for the modern human being. And I like the tissue pack because it is in a pack. So you kind of, you have 10 on you, you take one out, you then throw it out, and then but you just still have everything isolated. There's plastic, you can put it in your bag and you take it out. It's just an easy, convenient thing to carry around. So we wanted to take this very conveniency modernness of the tissue pack and then really incorporate how can we make this actually be good for the environment.
Yeah. That's really cool. Now, I am curious as to, you mentioned that you guys are thinking about toilet paper. That would be a whole nother something. But I am curious, kind of what other types of things are on your radar. Because I'm assuming that this is something you guys are kind of always thinking about, is innovating and changing and inventing, creating.
Definitely. Yeah. And we actually had a longer talk about it today, because we are trying to figure out not what are we going to launch this year or next year, but also in 3 years, because a lot of the solutions that we're looking at will have a lot of investigation, but they're also going to be a longer design process. Last Swab was quite a short, because we knew what we wanted. So it was quite a short prototyping period and the tissue took a little longer because we really need to figure out how this, and there were a lot of different versions. We had to really solve the issue well. And now we're looking at some more complex issues that we design wise just have to really think. But I can say that we're going to really stay in the bathroom area, because that's a really fun area to be in.
Yeah.
and we're gonna make some more ew products. Toilet paper is not something that's on top of the list. It's more like our holy grail. I think we'll retire when we get to that. But I think that there are a lot of different items and this journey in general, just getting into different objects that we can change.
Yeah.
So, but yes, we're going to do a lot of things in the bathroom first.
Yeah. I mean, I think about things like floss, toothbrushes, feminine products. There's so many,
Exactly.
there's so many things that you could spend a lot of time working on. Okay, how can we make a reusable version of this? Well,
exactly.
So if people now, is this something that people can just go on your website and buy? If people are interested in these, how do they get their hands on some reusable Q-tips and reusable tissues?
Yes. Well, we have this system in our company that we really love to test things. And we really want to try out everything that we make. So that's why when we launched our last Swab, we did it on Kickstarter. And it was just amazing because we got so much feedback from the community. We really got an understanding of different colors we should introduce, different ways and materials that we should switch out and stuff like this. So we really want this phase to be part of our company strategy. So we do have a website where we sell our products, Last Swab, but we always release them first on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, a crowdfunding platform where we kind of test the waters and where you can kind of get the first hands on the first products. So right now, Last Tissue is finishing off on Indiegogo and will come into our web shop as soon as all the backers get their tissues. And Last Swab is, of course, already on our web shop, but everything will always end up there. It just has a process. So if you want to know what is the next product, then it's really going into actually our website and being updated or newsletters. Then we're always sending out what is the next launch. We have one here in the end of summer, which is very exciting. And for girls especially.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. Another thing that I forgot to mention and just kind of ask you about is something that you were also you played a big hand in. I mean, you guys designed was the first reusable chemotherapy bag to reduce waste in the medical industry that's being used now all over Denmark, which is amazing. I am just kind of curious, how did that particular project come about?
Yeah, that was an amazing project. That came about because when I was studying at design school, the hospital, or like our main hospital, contacted our department and asked if somebody wanted to try to solve this problem because they were using bags that were for actually pumps for pain relief. And they wanted something that was more designed for chemotherapy because they were starting to do a program where they sent people home with their chemotherapy. And that had really amazing results. So they needed a design solution around it. So I actually designed it with 4 other co-designers in my at my school. So it was actually a school project. And then when we finished it, 2 of us went out and said, okay, we got to actually produce it because this is actually a really good design. So we did a company afterwards, and then we got it produced, and that was a whole year in itself and then all the hospitals in Denmark could then buy into it, and they have.
That is absolutely amazing because you're not only, I mean, you're not only making an impact on the environment, you're making an impact on people, on the medical system. That's just absolutely incredible.
It was an
Yeah.
amazing project, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So if people want, before we kind of transition to my get to know you questions, if people are interested in just kind of connecting with you, following the work that you're doing, what are the best ways that they can do that?
I think, right, I would always say Instagram, because that's really where we're big. So I would, we have 2 different Instagram accounts, but you can follow Last Swab and you can follow LastObject. We're always updating on our new products there.
Awesome. Okay, Isabel, this is the portion of the show that I get to just ask you some fun, get to know you questions just to get to know our guest a little bit better. It's one of my favorite parts of the show. But before I kind of get into the lesser deep questions, I'm just kind of curious. This is something I've been asking my guests during this time, and that is kind of what are you learning about yourself during COVID-19?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I think I've learned a lot about how our company actually works because we have built, we're us 3 founders, and then we've just gotten a CEO and a CFO. So we're 5 in the office, and it's just amazing to be a little team. And we're growing this huge organization. So everything we do is freelancer based. So we have around 15 different freelancers that are working from all around the world. And it's really, really great for me to understand how they work. And now I have been working like them for myself. And it's very interesting how you can communicate. How can I communicate with my core team? And how can I get actually better for my freelancers to communicate with me? Because we always have each other, but we're reaching out to them and they're reaching into us. So I think creating some really good flows and understanding like the positive and the negatives of being a freelancer, which we have all kind of been in this period because you don't have your normal workstation. And that's really been an experience. And I've gotten a lot of understanding and a lot of really good flows with the different freelancers that I work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that perspective. I love that perspective. Okay, question number 2. Who would you, Isabel, most like to sit next to on a 16-hour flight and why?
16-hour flight. I don't think I would like to be on a flight.
I just did my first ever 16-hour flight back in January from Nairobi to JFK in New York, Nairobi,
Wow.
Kenya to JFK. And it was long. It was a really, really long time. So, I'm very curious as to like, who would you want to sit next to on that flight?
Okay. Well, I of course would love to sit next to my husband. I feel like I should say
Yeah.
that first.
Yeah.
But I think the first person that kind of pops into my head is an amazing guru that I met in India. It's called Sadhguru. And we're getting very personal now, but he has just influenced my life
Mm.
so much. And his vision and his way of dealing with problems and seeing the world and his perspective, I just find myself often kind of going to listen to his ideas and to his talks when I kind of feel off, because he's very aligned in a way.
Mm.
So yeah,
That's a really
I would
I
love
love.
to sit with him.
Yeah, and just kind of listen and learn. And yeah, that's great. That's great. What would you do differently if you knew that no one was judging you?
I would definitely not wear clothes.
Yes, clothes are very restrictive.
Comfortable. Like I just have like I and shoes and yeah. Also, one of the perks of being at home working is that you can really choose what to wear. But yeah, no, I think that a lot of our mindset and our thoughts go into how we look and how we're perceived. And I think that if you could kind of let this go, that would create a lot of energy for other stuff that is more
Mm,
important.
yeah, I like that. Okay. Are you, I am a big reader. I love to read. Are you a reader? And if so, are there any books that you are reading or loving right now?
I just finished actually a second book from an author I love, Gabriella Bernstein.
Mm.
She did a book on Universe Has Your Back, and I thought it was so amazing. She's just made a second book, and that was even more amazing. I love her perspective, and it's more or less, it's also just a kind of a spiritual book on how to look at life and how to be aware of your energy and the support system that you have around you. And I think whatever you do in your daily lives, it's just amazing to have that security in a sense.
Yeah.
And just yeah, just look at life in a different positive way can really make a difference in hard times.
Mhm.
So I think that was really amazing. If I can mention one more book, which is more business related, Tim Ferriss did 4 Hour Work Week,
Oh,
and it's a
yeah.
classical
Yeah.
book. A lot of people have read it, but I think it's just still worth mentioning because it's a really, really good book. And it's especially being a freelancer or an entrepreneur, trying to deal with not working constantly, but working smart is gonna make a huge difference in your life.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. I read that book. Yeah. I mean, probably 10, 12 years ago. And it's one I reference often. So that's a really great suggestion. Okay. Well, this is my last question. And it's the question that I ask all my guests. And that is, what does it mean to you to run a business with purpose?
It means everything. And it's actually crazy because we have all three done a lot of different projects and had different companies along the way. And we've all loved designing, but this designing for a purpose, creating for a purpose, that it's not about the numbers of money, but it's about numbers of single use items that you have eliminated. I think that's just, it's so purposeful to go to work. You want to go that extra mile. So it's such a core part of the company that it's also the company in a sense. So everything that we do is zero waste. Everything, how we create our company structure is sustainable. So our whole purpose is kind of our whole life now. And that's been an amazing experience. And it's something that I actually should mention more often because it really makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really, really great perspective. Isabel, I just am so grateful for you coming on the show all the way from Denmark and using technology to connect with you. This is just so much fun. And I cannot wait to see all of the other products that you tackle in such a really purposeful design way, and the impact that you're going to have on the environment and so many people's lives. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been such a pleasure. I love to to tell more people about the story and hopefully inspire more people to go into zero waste and sustainability. There is room for a lot of companies. So yeah, I hope it can inspire.
Absolutely. Okay, friend, I would love to know what you loved about this episode, or maybe something that you learned. If you do, let me know on social media. You can find me at Still Being Molly or at Business with Purpose Podcast on Instagram or Facebook. And don't forget to use that hashtag Business with Purpose Podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you are a first-time listener of the show, welcome. Be sure to visit the archives for past shows featuring incredible entrepreneurs and business owners who are literally changing the world with their businesses. And if you are a regular listener of the show, thank you so much for tuning in week and week out, and thank you for your support. Be sure to head on over to iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Radio Public, or wherever you listen to podcasts and click that subscribe button. Clicking that subscribe button helps to make sure you never miss a new episode of the show. And while you're there, would you just take a moment to leave a review for me? Leaving a review really just helps me to know what you're liking and how the show is personally impacting you. As always, this show is produced by the amazing team at Third Wheel Media. Thank you so much for listening, and go do something good with purpose on purpose.
Now go do something good with purpose on purpose.